Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Dreamers Got Finished podcast, everybody. Show coming to you on this Saturday, September the 12th, 2020. Hopefully this finds you staying safe and staying sweaty all at the same time. I'm going to drop a real quick episode today. I don't have anything written down. This is just off the top. This is me just rambling on. I'm going to share some real quick stories and hopefully just some easy listening if you're in the car or doing your mobility or getting a warm-up in. And also as a reminder to just be a good human and try to appreciate every day for the gift that it is. And I know right now it's tough with a lot of the shit that's going on in the world and the things that you're stressing about and worried about, and we all have those. And everybody's, individual ecosystem is different, and we all have different stresses and worries, but you can still be a good person. You can still be a fountain, not a drain to people. You can still provide more joy and happiness than you take. And you can be a producer and not just a consumer. Don't be an energy suck, right? Like, don't be a vampire. It don't always be take, give. And try to put other people first and try to realize like how good you do have it and how lucky you really are, even when you're in the shit, right? Like, it's hard to see the forest from the trees. I've said that a lot before. And even for me, man, perspective is real and gratitude is real. And those are daily practices. And just like you do split squats or do pull-ups, you have to practice having perspective every day. And you have to practice having gratitude every single day, especially when you're in the thick of it, man. And I always say, like, that's who we are. In our most stressed out, sad moments, that's who we really are. Not us on our highlight reels, not us when the sun is shining and we feel like a sexy rock star. Yeah, that's who we are too, but it's who you are in the face of adversity in the toughest times, and can you rise to the occasion and can you still deliver? And I shared this on my Instagram story the other day. Be who the younger version of you needs. Like, be that person. And I try to do that every single day. Like, I try to be the version that I needed at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, into my early 20s. I try to be that version of me every single day for the kid that's watching or listening and reading my stuff. I try to lead from the front in that regard. And if you're watching on YouTube, I'm wearing a t-shirt right now. It just says, be a nice human. It's why we make all the shirts here, honestly. Smile, there's so many reasons to be happy, or someone else is praying for the things you take for granted shirt. We create those. I mean, honestly, I wear it for myself to remind myself, don't be an asshole and just be nice to everybody, and try to put way more good out into the world than bad, and to try to leave every relationship and every place you go better than you found it. We call it, give 51, take 49. So I'm going to give 51% and I'm only going to take 49. So I always try to be the hand, helping people, not the hand pulling people down. And there's going to be times in life where you need people to pick you up, and hopefully, if you listen to me, I can serve as that for you in at least some small way, depending on what podcast you're listening to. But it helps. And I think that's why I surround myself with positive sayings and quotes and obviously positive people. But I wear these shirts out in public so people see it. And obviously, selfishly, we make money off them, so I'm not a saint for sure. But I do think when people see it at the grocery store randomly, they're going to download it in their brain, whether it be consciously or subconsciously. And I think the more often you can see and hear positive things, the better outlook and perspective and the more gratitude you're going to have in the world, especially when you're in times that are sad and when you have adversity in your life, like a lot of us have during this weird season that we're in. And that's why I'm making this podcast, and just, you have the power to change people's lives. All of you do listening. Yeah, you might not have 1 million listeners per episode on a podcast. Yeah, you might not have hundreds of thousands of people on Instagram. Yeah, you might not have an email list, that reaches, all over the world. But you don't need that. You have the power to smile. You have the power to wave. You have the power to say hi. You have the power to hold the door open or close the door. You have the power to donate your time or your money if you're in a position to. And you have the power to give somebody a call, write them a letter, send them a text. A lot of times that's all it takes. It's the smallest things that actually end up being the biggest things that can change the way that people think And sometimes by you just like texting somebody, it can change the trajectory of their day and sometimes even their life. I know that sounds almost crazy, but I'm going to share a couple stories here with you guys. And I'm going to tell this podcast, my grandma is a gangster. And that's probably why some of you clicked on it. You're like, what the hell is he talking about? His grandma's a gangster. She's not, one of the original, Sopranos or anything, but my grandma was a gangster. And I'm going to share this with you here quickly, not to feel bad for me. I don't need empathy. I don't need you guys to cry for me or feel sad for me. That's not why I share this. And honestly, I dread the spotlight more than you guys understand. It's called the Jeremy Scott Fitness Podcast, and your business is called Jeremy Scott Fitness, and your name's in the building and the shirts. Yeah, I know. To build a personal brand, that's how we made money. I wouldn't have done this 15 years ago if I knew this is what it would have came to. But I made my bed, so now I have to lie in it. And I share that because I don't want you to send me a message and say, hey, Jeremy, I'm so sorry for your loss. This is not what this is about. I share these things to give you guys, hopefully, some perspective and as a reminder to don't make mistakes that I've made, or to do things proactively when you have the time and really treat every relationship, every opportunity, and every day as a gift, because I think we put off things. We do this. And the reason why life is so precious is because it's going to fucking end. It's going to be gone one day. And that's what gives us this sense of urgency to accomplish things, to go places, to see people, to touch them, to appreciate the little moments, which in reality are the biggest moments. And that's why I share this with you. And again, not to feel bad for my life is amazing, even though 2020 has been less than perfect for me. I still wouldn't trade my life for the world, because I really realize, a lot of people would pray for the problems I have and the shit that I have to deal with at this point in my life. But my grandma passed away on Thursday. Today is September the 12th. She passed away September the 10th. My dad had texted me that sometime in the morning on Thursday, and I had to work here all day with people. Didn't say a word to anybody. I only share it with you guys to hopefully provide you value on this podcast. I'm not a huge, sympathy card person, send messages person. In fact, I dread if my dog was to pass away, or like anybody else, because I have a hard time hearing it from other people. I just want to kind of move forward in my own we all have our own process, right? And I'm not great with death like anybody else is, but my grandma passed away on Thursday. I got to talk to her on the 3rd, so a week before she passed away. She was 89 years old. Her birthday is right around mine, so she just turned 89, and had no health issues whatsoever until about 3 weeks ago, give or take, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. She had started to get some fluid buildup in her stomach, and they diagnosed her with throat cancer and stomach cancer, actually. And she had a mass where the fluid was building up, and had to go in and get a drink because she noticed she was gaining weight. And she probably was feeling a little bit different sometime earlier in the year, but nothing, crazy enough to make her go in. Maybe just going to the bathroom a little bit more often. And she had noticed, obviously, finally, that the stomach was kind of looking bloated, and she was gaining some weight. My grandma, small, slim, genetically, ectomorph, fit woman. And I share that to share this. My grandma died at 89 this Thursday. My grandma had not been to the doctor in over 30 years. I'm going to repeat that so you hear it. I'm not suggesting that to anybody. My grandma had not been to a physician in over 30 years. So she'd not been to the doctor for anything like a checkup since she was in her 50s. Now, obviously, if she had something go wrong, I know she had a stumble because she walked all the time. She had a stumble maybe like a year or so ago where her thumb or something, I don't know if she had broke it or just got out of place. So she had like go in and have them fix it. But my grandma had not been to the doctor in over 30 years. I'm not suggesting that, but hence, well, my grandma is one of the original gangsters, right? She took no medication at all, no underlying health issues, and even if she was to take like an ibuprofen, she would say she would like feel a buzz. So my grandma was not not into pharmaceuticals at all. And so to think of this, you can be damn near 90 years old, not go to a doctor, take no medications, and just live this healthy, happy life. It's pretty insane. So I feel bad for obviously the end of her life here the last couple of weeks, but she had a great run, man. And she was a badass. She would walk every day. She'd go to church twice a day, which seems obsessive to me, but she loved it. She was down with God. She loved church, and she would never push it on me, or my dad. I don't think you can at this point. My dad is who he is. But she would always send like a Jesus card, right? Like a card with like a Jesus message or a church message, and it was fine. But my grandma would go to church twice a day. She would walk miles and miles. I think she would walk for a couple hours, like every day. And I would always joke, like with my sister and my mom and dad, like, well, grandma, she's doing all right. Hasn't been to the doctor in 30 years. All she does is go for walks, makes cookies, and drinks wine. So she's living the hell of a life. And I remember Heather and I will go every year, and that's partially why it's sad. I didn't get to see her this year because of the pandemic and the COVID shit. And obviously, she's 89 years old, has no underlying health issues, but I guess she would qualify as being in the higher risk. And her boyfriend, which she's been dating for 45 years, which is crazy to say, right? Again, my grandma's a G. She's been dating the same dude for 45 years. His name's Dave. We call him Chef because I think he looks like Chef Boyardee. Love him to death. Super cool dude. He has some underlying health issues, and he's also in his 80s. So obviously we didn't fly back this summer, so I didn't get to see her. So I do feel like the pandemic robbed me of that, which does suck, and I fucking hate it, obviously, for that, because it robbed me the last time I was going to get to see her, which is sad, admittedly, for me. But every time we go back, Heather and I always stop to chat with her and Chef. And my grandma's very quiet, very much like myself, very much like my dad. I guess I can see where I get it and where he gets it from, kind of that, strong, silent type. Because to give you some background, my grandma raised 5 kids. My dad, his twin brother, my Uncle Tom, my Uncle Mike, and my Aunt Shelley. So 5 kids. My grandpa, I never got to meet him. He died when my dad was like 12. So my dad didn't, have this dad figure for most of his formidable years, which had to be tough too, to be raised by just a female, with 5 kids. It had to have been tough. So the fact that she could do that and still stay sane, I tip my cap to her for sure. And then I'm happy she was able to meet, the Chef and date him for 45 years, which is crazy. But that's kind of the backstory of her. To do that solo had to be tough, to work and have 5 kids and be able to survive and do it. That's got to be a tough upbringing, A, for the kids, but also for my grandma to lose, probably the love of your life, a person you had 5 children with, and kind of go it on your own. But I remember Heather and I being over there, and Heather and I would always stop every year, chat with her and Chef. And even though he would talk way more than my grandma would, it was just nice to hear their perspective in on life. And they're just, older people are wiser than us. They've had way more life experience, but it's just funny. Like, I remember we got something off the internet. They don't have computers, right? They don't have smartphones. I don't think they even have cell phones, honestly. They do have GPS in the car because they would talk about that. But I remember her and Chef were like, yeah, we got a lamp, and so-and-so got it for us off the internet. This lamp came off the internet. And just the way that they would say it, we got this lamp off the internet, is it's cute, and it's also comical, and it shows you how different we are, obviously, in the eras. But I remember being over there chatting with her, and she said, this is a couple years back, well, I had to go into the dentist, and he said I needed a crown, but I left. She goes, I don't need that. And I go, well, how long ago was that, Grandma? She goes, like 15 years ago. 15 years ago, the dentist told you needed a crown, and you told him, fuck off, you don't need that, and you just kept it moving. Like, again, I'm not condoning my grandma's, health checkup procedures here, but, genetics is real, apparently, and hopefully I got a lot of those genetics. That would be ideal and great if I didn't have to go, if I didn't have to, like my life was lucky enough for any health issues for the last 30 plus years of your life. You just made it through. And I could basically just, I guess go to church, bake cookies all day, drink wine or have a cocktail, and go for walks. And I could be paper thin, shredded, and healthy. That, my friends, was my grandma's life for the past 3 decades plus. But again, not an overeater, always active, in bowling leagues until probably sometime in her 80s, and just a very, very self-sufficient woman. And obviously it's my grandma, always nice to me, like an extension of my parents. You remember going over there, staying there, staying up super late. She would always drag me to church, which I was not a fan of that. Church was the least amount of fun, but if you stayed at grandma's, you had to go to church. It was kind of like the rules. You're like, well, I'm gonna get to stay up late. She's gonna make me macaroni and cheese and hot dogs. I'm gonna get to eat a bunch of fucking ice cream. She's gonna take me to Kmart, Promida, buy me a toy, but I gotta go to church. You start to learn, is the juice worth the squeeze as a young kid? And she'll take you to the park. You get to play with maybe some of your cousins, but you gotta go to church. It's kind of like, doing split squats. It's gonna be painful. It's gonna suck, but it's gonna make your ass, your quads and hamstrings look good. So I think that's where my grandma unintentionally was one of the first ones who taught me, is the juice worth the squeeze? And so that was where, so appreciate your grandma. It's one of the first life lessons that actually came in. But I share that story with you guys for the fact of older people are always going to give you a perspective on life that you're not going to have. And yeah, I might have been able to travel the world in a way that she didn't, and I might have a deeper school education that she didn't have, but she's already lived my life, and if you're lucky enough to have a grandma or grandpa around, visit with them, call them and chat with them, because odds are they've already lived 2 or 3 times longer than you, and they've seen a lot more shit than you have. They've lived through a lot more life cycles. They've seen people come and go. They're going to have perspective on life that you're not going to have. They're going to be able to share with you the things they wish they would have done differently. They're going to share with you regrets. They're going to share with you the biggest takeaways. They're going to share with you what's really important to them and what they value most in the world. And I think it would probably differ than, what you value and what you appreciate the most. And I think we can learn a lot from those who have done it before us and those who have lived a life, that we haven't lived yet. And that's the beauty of having a grandma and grandpa. And I'll be real with you, it was super hard for me to call her about a week ago. I didn't want to, full disclaimer. And that's me just being, for lack of a better term, just being a little bitch about it. I'm not great with death. I don't know anybody who is, especially when it's people closest to you that have had a hand in raising you, or you spent obviously my whole life with her, so the better part of 7 years. And it was tough, man. It really was. My Uncle Mike had given me a call real quick, and he was like, hey, grandma's awake and she's up, she's doing okay today. Maybe you want to give her a call. Because for 88 years and 11 months, my grandma was perfect, had no health issues. When they told her she had, the stage 4 cancer, she kind of, it went downhill pretty quick from there. And I don't know how you handle that mentally. I don't know if I would be able to. But her demeanor just didn't get terrible, but it started to change pretty quickly. Because when you hear that, I think mentally it wrecks you in a certain way. And then obviously you started to have complications with her throat and her stomach, so she's not eating as much. My grandma's already, shredded like Rambo, so she hasn't got the weight to lose, right? And so she starts to lose the weight, then you don't have the energy because you're not eating. And then they said it was a real struggle for her probably the last week or so to get from her bedroom to the living room alone. And then obviously when the hospice care comes in, that's kind of the end of the line. So my Uncle Mike calls me and left me a voice message for 20 seconds. And you can hear the sadness in his voice, and that's what comes with loss. And he's like, hey, you can give her a call, she's awake. And so I got in my car, drove to the parking lot of the Starbucks here, because I couldn't do it in the office because I had to work the rest of the day, and I knew I don't want to have a meltdown in front of obviously people here. And I called her, chatted for about 5 minutes, just shooting the shit. She sounded actually really great, and obviously passes away 7 days later. And we talk for about 5 minutes, kind of share what Heather and I have been up to, our travels. You know, you tell her you love them, you appreciate them. And then as soon as I hang up the phone, I just start crying, like hard as fuck, like uncontrollable, like you did when you were a little kid. And admittedly, you guys, if you can imagine, I'm not a huge crier. My wife can vouch for that. It has to be real for me to really like break down and lose it like that. But you feel the weight of it, and you feel the seriousness of it because you know it's the last time you're going to talk to them. And it's probably harder for us who are the survivors and the people who passed, because at that point, you know, she was upbeat as much as you can be, right? When you're, you know, for lack of a better term, like kind of on your deathbed. And it was tough for me, man. It was tough for me to get through the call. And afterwards, I just broke down. And I couldn't imagine like losing a parent. Like if you're my dad and you're there, or you're my aunt and you're there, and you're having to see it in person, just how tough that is to chew on and to deal with. And so that was a tough day. And then to come back here and work the rest of the day with people for like 10 hours, you just try to not think about it. You try not to think about the totality of the moment, because like, this is the last time I'm going to talk to this person. And you don't really know what to say. You really don't. But did the best I could. Again, I have no magic words for that. And I was just happy I was able to do it. And I got over, you know, my own being a little asshole moment of me not wanting to do it because I knew I was going to break down. I knew it was not going to be easy for me. But I'm happy I did. And to share that, it's even tough to talk about here. My dad had texted me the next day. He's like, well, stopped at grandma's. She said you called. She was smiling. She was happy, which made me feel good about myself selfishly, that I was able to do it and give her, you know, some moments of joy in the last, you know, couple days of her life. And I share that with you guys for the fact of, if you're lucky enough to have a grandma or a grandpa who's alive, because all of mine are gone now, and I've watched the 3 that I knew leave all with cancer, and all the same way. And it's tough, man. And it sucks that that's how most of us probably go out. And but again, my grandma lived like a motherfucking gangster for her entire existence. She did it her way. Nobody could tell her shit, which I got to appreciate. And I got to think I got a little bit of that DNA in me, because I'm stubborn as hell too. But it's still tough to see. And it's tough to swallow, because you know, like, that's it. And you're not going to see him again. So if you're fortunate enough, you guys, to have grandparents in your life, if you're fortunate enough to have both your parents around, you got to call them, man. You got to visit them. You have to write them letters. You have to reach out to them. You have to let them know you appreciate them. And even if you think they know that, it's nice for them to hear it, because especially now during this season and shit of life, they are probably the most disconnected from you they've ever been. They're probably the loneliest they've ever been. They're probably the saddest and the most scared they've ever been, especially if they do watch the news and see things. They're probably, you know, fearful to leave the house, and they probably haven't seen you like they normally have. Like, I would only get to see them once a year, and this season of life took that away from me, which I'll probably always be a little bit pissed about. And so we sent them cards earlier. And I will say this, I would have called my grandma more, but my grandma is like a dude. Like, even when you call her, she'd talk for about 5 minutes and be like, all right, Jeremy, you gotta go. I'm like, you're retired, where do you gotta go? And she would do it like my dad and I do it. And so I guess that's where we get it from. But they appreciate the handwritten cards and letters and notes. And I know my grandma appreciated me, you know, every time I come back to Minnesota, driving to go see her and stopping by, because it's important. You know, these people played a part in my upbringing, and they raised me. And for me to act like I'm too busy to come see them would be the worst thing in the world. And so I'm thankful, even like when I first moved away in my early 20s, I wasn't an asshole. And, you know, would go out drinking with my friends and not go see my grandma instead. So I guess I feel like I'm a good human for doing that, but it was important to me. And I think a lot of people don't do that. I even have family members who live in the same city my grandma used to live in, who didn't go see her every single year, and sometimes would go multiple years without seeing them. And I know we all get busy in our lives, but there's people who matter to you who I would hate to have you look back and be like, wow, I could have made time to see that person. I could have made time to call that person, text that person, send that person a present, a gift, an acknowledgement of their birthday, of an anniversary, or anything, and you didn't because you just got so wrapped up in the shit that didn't matter. And at the end of the day, like, your family matters. Like, the people who raised you matter. I don't care if the relationship wasn't perfect. None of them are. But those things matter, dude. They really do, especially if you have positive memories of them in your life, like I do of my grandma, of, Christmas time, buying me a terrible duck sweater, but also giving me $100. Like, damn, grandma's a gangster. Like, yeah, she bought me this terrible duck sweater that I'm never gonna wear, but she gave me $100. Thank you, grandma, appreciate you. And they took you places, they did things for you, they took care of you when your parents were gone, at least mine did. And you'll always remember that stuff. And so I just share this basic message that we all know we should do it. And now with the world the way that it is, with us, with work and our own stuff, we get so wrapped up in our lives, we oftentimes forget to reach out to those people. And it's so simple to do. And I'm thankful now with technology, like my mom knows how to use Instagram, so does my dad, and like YouTube, and they can see my stuff, and we can read, and we can text, and we can message each other. And I will say this, in times like this, when it's, the saddest it is for families, it's an opportunity for you to become the most connected. I've probably texted and talked to my dad more during this weird season of life than ever before. And especially now, with him actually being there, being able to see my grandma and obviously say goodbye to her and talk to her physically and touch her, him and I have texted and communicated more than we probably ever have in a month's time frame. So if there's any positive that can come from stuff like this, it can be it. It can be a reminder to just really stay connected to those people who matter to you the most and really reach out to people. And you might think they're doing great and they're doing good and they don't need your help or your feedback or to hear from you, but I promise you they do. And it's helpful. Even when my best friend just messages me, again, it just pops in my head because they're all in Minnesota and I'm here. My best friend lives outside Minneapolis. And the other day he just texted me like some of the most like just inappropriate shit. And it just like 2 words that would make no sense if I share it and will only offend people. And I'm like, how does that pop into this fucking kid's brain, right? And it's just like, and that starts this dialogue between us. And it made my day better, because I'm just like you. I can have a shitty day, and your parents are just like you. Your parents can have bad days. Your spouse can have bad days. Your friends and family can have bad days. People that you haven't reached out to in a long time can have rough days, and they can have rough times. And you have the ability to literally change their day, and it can change their life. There's times in my life, you guys, where me seeing something or reading something or hearing something pulled me out of a really deep, for lack of a better term, like depressed, shitty state, and it put me back on the right track. And it doesn't have to be this, 30-minute podcast. It doesn't have to be this, 10-minute motivational video. It can just be somebody sending you something funny or just checking up and saying, hey, I'm thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay in all this craziness. I really can't wait to see you again. Something so simplistic and basic can go so far. And I know a lot of times relationships aren't perfect with people, and it might take you swallowing your pride or confronting an awkward situation or just reaching out and saying something, but it can make all the difference in the world. And if I'm being completely honest here, if my Uncle Mike doesn't prompt me to call my grandma, I don't know if I do. I like to think that I would have, but I don't know, man. Because I'm like you guys, I'm willing to do the tough things that are tough for me, but like also in my ecosystem. It's hard for me to do the real uncomfortable shit. And that was hard. And without him calling me, I don't know if I call her, and I really don't know if I do on that day, because I only had like 30 minutes for free. And I left here for 10 minutes, and I came back, and I had to look like, I got punched in the face or stung by 40 bees because my eyes were so red and so swollen, and I was just it was rough, dude. But I'm happy I did, for me, selfishly, for closure, but for her, hopefully, to be like, hey, tell her I loved her one last time, and for her to hear my voice and just, bring a smile to her face in a time when she probably felt, her most alone, even though she had some kids and stuff around. It just has to be really hard to chew on. And I think if you can be that fountain for somebody, not a drain, be the fountain. If you can be the giver, not the taker, people need that right now. If you can be giving 51 out and only taking 49 back, that's what the world needs right now. And if you can be that person, great. And if you have to be the person who's taking, then that's okay. But just know you can reciprocate it when you're in a better space. Work in the capacity where you're at. I know there was days during this, you guys, where it was really tough for me to get on the mic or to write things or to do videos, but I would do my best to gut through it because I know in the big picture of things, I have it so much better, and I have the ability to put a smile on people's face. I have the ability to facilitate a healthy place for people physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally, and I'll do that as much as I possibly can, even when it is really tough for me and it's hard to do, like it was for me a week ago. But if anything else, hopefully that serves as just a reminder to you guys. So even if it's not easy, it's not convenient, it's not ideal, you do it anyway. And I know it wasn't for me, but if my story can be a lesson for you guys, hopefully it is. Because I think one of the worst things we can do is not talk to, not message, not reach out to the people who are most important and closest to us in our lives, because we think, oh, well, we'll be able to do it in a couple months when it's normal. Oh, we'll be able to do it next week or next year. And I didn't get the chance, to see my grandma one last time because of the world and the shit that we're in. But I'm very fortunate enough I was able to talk to her, even though it was not in an ideal situation or setting. But I was fortunate enough to still have the chance, and I only had the chance by six or 7 days. And honestly, I probably even couldn't have talked to her 3 days ago because my old man said she went downhill pretty quick from there. So if you are listening to me right now, when you get off this podcast, stop, message your grandma, message your grandpa, send a note to your mom, your dad, brother, sister, friend, family member that you haven't talked to in a while. If you're not sure how they're doing, they're having a tough time, just say, hey man, I love you, I'm thinking about you. Because it means more than you know. And it can change the game for them, and it can also change the game for you guys. So again, that's just me rambling on, sharing some personal stories, probably more cathartic for me than for you guys. But hopefully you get the takeaway and you don't take any days for granted, and you really understand, how lucky you are to have the people in your life that you have. And if you know that, tell them that early and often, that you love them and appreciate them, because they will not be around forever. None of us will. That's what makes life so sad and tragic, but also that's what makes it so beautiful and amazing. And that's why we have a sense of urgency, and that's why we feel the sense of appreciation we have, because we know that, this car ride won't keep rolling forever. One day it's going to stop, and we don't know when that's going to be. So I thank you guys. I appreciate you. I hope you have an amazing rest of your weekend, wherever you're at and whatever you're doing. If you guys have any requests for me on the podcast, shoot me a message, hit me up. I'm happy to record them. I got a bunch of Q&As I'll probably get to maybe tomorrow if I can. And then a bunch of other health stuff down the line. And then we're going to start getting some guests in here, hopefully the rest of September and October, as we're, fighting through this season of life and hopefully rolling through it on the back end. So if you are on iTunes right now, stop. Don't be a lazy ass. Drop me a 5-star. If you can, leave me a comment. I truly would appreciate it. And as always, I thank you guys for listening. It means the world to us. We appreciate the support, everything you do in terms of our programs and following us on YouTube and Instagram and subscribing to our newsletter. Just thank you. It means a lot. If you guys didn't listen, watch, and read, we wouldn't keep putting the stuff out. So have an amazing rest of your Saturday. And until next time, eat well, train hard, be nice to people, and please, you guys, keep doing shit you love with people you enjoy, because your life is too short not to. I'll talk to you soon. Peace.